Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Session F of IAM 2026W. It is my great pleasure to chair this session, which brings together a set of insightful studies addressing generational differences, digital engagement, emotional responses, and innovative learning approaches across diverse contexts. Today's presentations span topics from short video tourism marketing and intergenerational well-being to immersive learning and project management education. Collectively, these studies offer valuable empirical and theoretical contributions to innovation and management research. I would like to thank all presenters for sharing their work with us, and I encourage the audience to actively engage in the discussions following each presentation. Let us begin with the presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Yu-Ju Lin from the National Taipei University of Business in Taiwan. Together with my student, Tzu-Min Chen, we conducted this study titled Generational Differences in Flow-Induced Emotional Responses, Empirical Evidence from Short Video Tourism Marketing. This research explores how flow experiences created by influencer travel videos shape viewers' emotions and digital engagement across generations. We integrate flow theory and the pleasure arousal dominance (PAD) model to explain how immersive short video experiences evolve into engagement and why generational differences matter. Nowadays, short video platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Reels, and YouTube Shorts have changed how people experience travel content. When we watch these travel videos, they're short, emotional, and visually rich. Sometimes we even forget time while watching. That state is called flow when we're totally absorbed and enjoying the moment. However, most studies only say that flow makes people take action, but few explain how emotions actually connect flow to behavior. In this study, we combine flow theory and the pleasure arousal dominance model to see how emotions turn immersion into engagement and how this process might vary by generation. Our framework combines three key ideas: flow theory, the pleasure arousal dominance model, and cognitive appraisal theory. Flow describes a state of deep focus and enjoyment when viewers are fully absorbed and even lose track of time. The PAD model explains emotions in three parts: pleasure, arousal, and dominance, which show how people emotionally evaluate their experience. These emotions serve as a bridge, turning the immersive feeling of flow into engagement, like continuing to watch or share the video. Based on cognitive appraisal theory, we believe emotions arise from how viewers interpret what they see. Because generations X, Y, and Z differ in digital habits and immersion sensitivity, we expect the effects of flow and emotion to vary across generations. Now, let me briefly introduce our methodology. We carried out a quantitative online survey in Taiwan and collected 716 valid responses from three generations: Generation X between 44 and 59 years old, Generation Y between 28 and 43, and Generation Z between 18 and 27. Each participant was asked to recall a specific influencer or travel creator video they had recently watched on TikTok, Instagram Reels, or YouTube Shorts. The questionnaire measured three main constructs. The first was flow, which included indicators such as absorption, enjoyment, and intrinsic motivation. The second was emotional response, based on the dimensions of pleasure, arousal, and dominance. And the third was digital engagement, which referred to behavioral intentions such as continued watching, recommending, and reusing the content. For data analysis, we follow the standard procedure for structural equation modeling. We first examined the reliability and the validity of each construct using confirmatory factor analysis, and then tested the overall model as well as differences among generations. This approach allowed us to capture both the general relationships among the variables and how those relationships vary across age cohorts. Before testing our hypotheses, we first checked whether our measurement model was reliable and valid. The results looked excellent. All the scales showed a very strong reliability and good validity, which means that each construct measured what it was supposed to measure. Our confirmatory factor analysis also indicated a good model fit, suggesting that the structure of our measures accurately reflected the data. We then compared two structural models. The first model included both direct and indirect effects of flow on engagement. The second model focused only on the indirect path through emotions. The results clearly supported the second model, showing that emotions fully transmit the effect of flow on engagement. In short, flow works through emotional experience rather than directly influencing engagement. As shown in this slide, our analysis reveals that flow has a very strong positive effect on emotional responses, with a pass coefficient close to 0.9. These emotions, in turn, strongly predict user engagement. The direct link from flow to engagement is not significant, indicating that the influence of flow operates entirely through the emotional pathway rather than directly affecting behavior. Overall, the model demonstrates excellent explanatory power, accounting for roughly 80% of the variation in emotions and about 87% in engagement. This shows that emotional experience is the key mechanism connecting flow with digital engagement. Next, I will show how these effects differ across generations. Moving to generational differences, we compare the structural relationships across generations X, Y, and Z. The results show a clear pattern. The link between flow and emotional response is strongest among Generation X, slightly lower for Generation Y, and weakest for Generation Z. This means that older participants tend to experience deeper emotional immersion when watching influencer travel videos, while younger users, especially Gen Z, may process the same content with shorter attention spans and more fragmented focus. However, once emotions are activated, the relationship between emotions and engagement remains consistently strong across all groups. In short, generational differences appear mainly in how easily viewers enter a flow state, not in how emotions translate into engagement. This finding highlights that while attention patterns differ by age, the emotional power of engagement is universal. These findings carry both theoretical and practical implications. From a theoretical point of view, our study extends flow theory beyond interactive contexts, such as gaming or online shopping, into passive but immersive experiences like short video viewing. By integrating flow theory with the pleasure arousal dominance framework, we identify emotions as the key mechanism that transforms immersion into engagement. Our results also refine the understanding of generational psychology. The ability to experience flow seems to differ across generations, yet once emotions are activated, their influence on engagement remains remarkably consistent. From a managerial perspective, these insights can guide content creators and marketers. For Gen Z, emphasize fast-paced visuals, interactive elements, and rhythmic editing to sustain attention. For Gen Y, focus on authentic storytelling and emotional connection. And for Gen X, provide credible, detailed, and information-rich content that fosters trust and reflection. In sum, aligning content design with each generation's viewing tendencies can enhance emotional engagement and strengthen long-term audience loyalty. To conclude, Our findings confirm that flow influences engagement entirely through emotional experience. Emotions act as the psychological bridge that transforms immersion into action. Generational differences appear only in the formation of flow. Generation X experiences the deepest immersion, while Generation Z requires more stimulation to reach the same level. Once emotions are triggered, however, their impact on engagement is equally powerful across all generations. These results suggest that emotions are universal drivers of digital engagement, while the ease of entering a flow state reflects generational patterns of attention and media use. For future research, we plan to expand this model to include cross-cultural comparisons, explore differences among platforms such as TikTok, Reels, and Shorts, and integrate behavioral measures like actual viewing duration and sharing activity. We also intend to examine authenticity and social presence as possible emotional mediators. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to your questions and discussion. Thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure to share our research with you today. If you have any questions or would like to discuss this topic further, please feel free to reach out to me at narrowlink@nontub.edu.tdu. I truly appreciate your time and attention.
Good afternoon, distinguished professors and colleagues. My name is Li-Wei, a PhD candidate from Yishou University, Taiwan. Today, I am honored to present our study entitled The Impact of Digital Intergenerational Engagement on the Well-being of older adults, a well-being economic perspective on sustainable social innovation. Background: global population again has become one of the most critical social challenges of our time. Older adults increasingly face social isolation, emotional decline, and digital exclusion. Where intergenerational programs have proven ineffective, most extending models rely heavily on the face-to-face interaction. However, in the post-pandemic area, digital interaction has become a new social norm. Despite this shift, digital intergenerational engagement remains under three rise. Therefore, this study addresses this gap by integrating intergenerational engagement, psychological well-being, and well-being economic with a university social responsibility framework. Objectives. The objectives of this study are threefold. First, to to examine the emotional well-being effects of digital intergenerational engagement. Second, the explore intergenerational learning and relational devices. Third, to position this model with sustainable social innovation. Framework and hypothesis. Based on the well-being economic perspective, we propose the university and function as a social well-being frameworks. Accordingly, our hypothesis start the digital intergenerational engagement positively influence older adults in emotional well-being. Methodology. We adopt a mixed research design. Quantitatively, we use pre and post test servers with a PRISMA-ScR. Qualitatively, we conducted semi-structured interviews with other adults and student volunteers. The program was implemented under a university USR initiative. Result. The quantitative results indicate a significant increase in positive effect and a significant decrease in negative effect after participation. Quantitative findings further revealed the restoration of social communication, enhanced the digital confidence, and accumulation of positive emotions. Discussing these findings confine exchange literature while extending it into digital and institutional context. The study contributed logically by bringing intergenerational engagement with a well-being economic and practically by demonstrating how USR can generate measurable social impact. practically, universities are encouraged to design structured digital intergeneration programs. Such initiatives not only improve elderly well-being, but also cultivate students in place and create responsibility. Conclusion. In conclusion, digital intergenerational engagement represent a sustainable, scalable, and impactful social innovation. It aligns closely with the situation for development goals, particularly good health and well-being, quality education, and reduce inequalities. Thank you very much for your action.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Favour, Aladesuru. I co-authored this paper with Laden, Husamaldin, and Parisa, Saadati, and today I'll just be giving a presentation on a scope review that we've done on the traditional versus immersive learning approaches in project management education. And before I continue, I just want to say how grateful I am to be given the opportunity to present at this conference. It's one I do not take for granted. The focus here is quite simple. We know that immersive technologies are becoming more visible in education, but we want to know exactly what evidence says about the two learning approaches, that is the conventional, traditional one, and the immersive learning approaches, especially as it pertains to project management education. In the next slide, I will be walking you through how I'm going to be structuring this presentation for clarity. In the next 10 minutes or less, I would be covering the research background. I would cover the research gap as well and state the research question. I will be discussing our methodology and the key results and themes that we've gotten from the studies that we included. We would also be doing a side-by-side comparison on where each approaches perform best. We will also be looking at the main evidence gap in literature and then the practical steps for stakeholders to take. And then we will just round up. Developing the capabilities of future project managers is or has become a key educational priority, according to the authors listed in this slide. We all know that project management education is ultimately about developing capabilities, and today capabilities go beyond merely just knowing frameworks. You have to be good at decision making, you have to be good at coordination, you have to be even better at working under certainty. However, most programs, most traditional project management lectures still heavily relies on lectures, classroom activities, and case studies. Those are not bad at all. In fact, according to the evidence, they are very, very effective for building conceptual understanding, and they scale well, but they don't always give the learners enough space to rehearse real project behavior. And that is why immersive learning approaches has kind of gained momentum in education and training, including project management, because these learning approaches allow the learners to practice scenarios safely, to learn from their mistakes, to build confidence and apply skills. So the question now becomes, where does immersive learning genuinely add value, and where does traditional learning still kind of do a lot of heavy lifting as it pertains to project management education? That kind of brings us to what exactly is missing in the literature. The research gap that we've identified is that studies on immersive learning are spread across different tools. and they often use like different outcome measures. That kind of makes it difficult to compare findings directly. Also, more importantly, comparative mapping of traditional versus immersive learning within one analytical frame is still relatively scarce or even non-existent according to our own knowledge. In other words, we don't just need more immersive studies. What we need is a clearer synthesis that compares both approaches consistently. So our research question is, what does existing research reveal about the type of interventions, the type of learning outcomes, comparative advantages, and evidence gap in traditional and immersive learning approaches to teach project management? And to answer that question, we have used a scoping review approach. The reason why we use the scoping review for this study is because the evidence that is available is still emerging and it is quite heterogeneous as well. We reported the work using PRISMA scoping review templates so as to ensure transparency and traceability. We actually searched 5 major databases. We searched Science Direct, we searched IEEE Scopus Web of Science, and we captured studies that ranging from 2015 to 2025 because we believe that that's the decade that that captures where immersive learning accelerated. And after this search we got a total of 1,840 studies, but after the duplication we screened the titles and abstracts for relevant studies. We then did a full text review, and here we applied like clear inclusion and exclusion criteria. The study needed to involve a project management related educational intervention and report learner outcomes as well. This whole process resulted in 22 studies that we could chart and compare systematically. I couldn't include all the keywords that we implemented, that we used in this presentation, but it's quite detailed in the paper. This PRISMA flow diagram shows how we moved from the initial pool of records to the final set of included studies. The main point here is that after duplicates were removed and the eligibility criteria were applied at both of the screening stages, we arrived at 22 studies with sufficient evidence to map intervention and outcomes. Now, what exactly do we do with these 22 studies? What exactly do they collectively show? That will be discussed in the next slide. From the 22 included studies, we found 4 consistent themes across the evidence. The first one is cognitive and technical knowledge acquisition. We found that traditional instruction still performs strongly when it comes to like foundational theory. Immersive tools can visualize theory, but the stronger signal is that the traditional learning approach remains efficient for conceptual grounding. 2 is for behavioral and soft skills. Immersive learning shows a clear advantage because it allows realistic rehearsals without real world consequences. So you can learn and fail, you can do like trial and error without real world consequences, which is very good. 3 and thirdly, on affective outcomes, immersive learning tends to increase engagement, motivation, and presence, but only when the learners are supported with proper onboarding, good interface design, and proper debriefing as well. And lastly is like the practical trade-off, where we see some challenges like usability, cost accessibility. We see that traditional approaches always remain lower cost, they are easier to scale, and they are more equitable. Immersive approaches can introduce barriers like, say, hardware, technical support, digital fluency, and technical risks like cyber sicknesses and glitches as being consistent. So now the question now is, how do we translate all of this into like practical comparison, where we compare where does each approach win exactly? So the question here is like, where does each approach win? For immersive learning, it performs best where experiential practice is the goal, when you're targeting skill transfer, when you want stronger engagement, and you want to also benefit from performance data that is captured inside the immersive simulations. However, for traditional learning, it dominates when the goal is foundational theory, when you also must prioritize accessibility and cost, where you want your learners to reflect on discussions and think critically, and when learners are novices, obviously, and they need like structured grounding first. We identified 3 major evidence gaps. Firstly, the longitudinal impacts. Most studies are quite short-term, so we still don't have enough strong evidence about how these immersive gains persist or how consistently they translate into workplace performance. Secondly, there is still limited evidence in real organizational context as well. And thirdly is the hybridization models. The implications for stakeholders, we've divided this into 3. For educators, they should shift towards practicing, facilitating practice and debriefing. For curriculum designers, they should redesign assessment to capture cognitive and behavioral competencies. And for accreditation and policymakers, they should recognize simulation outcomes, digital portfolios as valid competence evidence. This leads us to practical steps to align project management training with contemporary realities. Firstly, educators should combine traditional learning for foundations and immersive learning for practice, anchored by debriefing and performance-based assessments. Curriculum designers should structure theory, simulations, and reflections and design for actual real project behaviors. Industry and commercial stakeholders should invest with return on investment in mind and back it with support and long-term evaluation. In conclusion, the evidence that we've presented support a complementary model that is traditional learning for theory and probably accessibility purposes, while immersive learning should strengthen applied and behavioral competence. The most defensible direction is designed hybrid learning, evaluated with stronger longitudinal impact and real-world evidence. Thank you so much.
That concludes all the presentations in Session F and also marks the final session of IAM 2026W. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to sincerely thank all presenters for their insightful contributions and the audience for your active participation and thoughtful attention. The studies presented today have offered valuable perspectives on innovation, intergenerational issues, and contemporary educational and digital practices. We hope these discussions have provided meaningful insights and lasting inspiration for your future research and professional endeavors. Thank you all for your participation, and we wish you a safe journey home.